Okay, hey everybody, this is Rick Umali. I am doing a rehearsal of a talk I'm going to be giving in a few days. Actually, about a week, less than a week. This is going to be close to how I'm going to do it in terms of the speed. I'm hoping that I'll also get a lot of interaction with people talking and asking questions, things like that. I hope also to introduce in this rehearsal some new material that I found regarding WordToEPUB, a new tool that I found that I want to introduce people to so that they are aware of the different ways to do the conversion to ePub. So that's what we're going to cover. We'll fire up the PowerPoint and we'll get started on this. All right. Yeah. Okay, so how to make an ebook. Oh, let me put something in the chat too. This will also help with the timing that I can record it. Chat timestamp 8:30. Thanks for checking out this hackathon class. How to make an ebook. How to make a simple ebook. What's involved? I'm coming at you. This is a simple agenda of what we're going to talk about. I wrote an ebook back in 2017. It was posts that I made on my blog, which is, I'll put it this way, it's on the long tail. But I did like some of the posts on there, and I decided I wanted to make a book out of it. So I found them and went through the process of learning what's involved with making an ebook. And the book has sold only 9 times. If you want to be the 10th purchaser, you can click on this QR code. I'm just saying, if you want to. But the book was an exercise to learn about the technology and what's happening. How do I get it done? Self-publishing, of course, by 2017 was for sure a thing and remains a thing because now people don't need to do things the traditional publishing way. This class won't talk about any of those kinds of things, although I'll be happy to talk your ear off of those topics. The goal, again, was to learn how to do an ebook, and that's where my experience comes from with regards to making an ebook. To talk about what's inside an ebook, I started to browse around and I found this great video by Michael Sowers from 2011 where he talks about the history of ebook devices. And there's a rich history. 2007 was when the Kindle it used at the time e-ink. And the e-ink was, I have one. It's my favorite device, and it's it launched, though, the beginnings to me of the ebook industry, in that we found that there was a great device backed by what's ostensibly a monopoly retailer, but this retailer provided a market for people to buy electronic books and for people to sell electronic books. It's quite something, actually. This by itself, the Kindle direct publishing, it to me is by itself a massive business. And So 2007 was a big deal, and I liked this little graph showing all the different devices that preceded it, and then all the devices that came after it up until 2011, 2012. I also like the slides that he produced because he talks about the major ebook file formats. There's really only two, and there remains only two major file formats. This one, I think this column should just say Kindle, and that's what it is today. Amazon format, AZW Kindle format. It's really the Mobi Pocket format, and the Mobi Pocket format was from a device that was from a hardware manufacturer. I think it was the Palm Pilot, and it's in Michael Sauer's talk. But that is the format that Amazon adopted. They put some digital rights management, and away they went. ePub is an open format, again, supported by the Amazon devices, but also by the other major devices that are out there. It too supports DRM. I don't know anything about DRM, but I like this slide to talk to explain that there's really two major ebook file formats: ePub and Mobi Pocket, or rather, ePub and Amazon. Let's talk about what's inside of it further in more detail. And for that, I'm going to switch over to the desktop and show you the inside of an ebook, effective instruction. And if I double click on this, it opens up my ebook reader, which is Acquio Reader. And this ebook behaves like a typical ebook. This was written as a self-published book on Don Jones' website, and it is his little opinion book, short book, on how to provide effective instruction. And it was aimed at instructors, and he and I were working on a publishing project together. And he said, go and take a look at this book, and this is all done by email. And I'm reading this thinking, yeah, I think I want to get involved in this project that he had worked with another publisher on. But I like this book. And an ebook, though, the thing that's inside of here is that it's a zip file. If I open it with my zip tool, which is 7-zip on Windows, if I open it, you can see that there's stuff inside. And there's a directory full of XHTML files. There's a couple of seemingly mysterious files. We won't actually get into a lot of these files because we're going to use a tool that hides a lot of those details. The zip file, though, does reveal that it is ePub is a set of XHTML files inside of a container. That's what an ePub is. I was reading this website called, find it here, Fun with Formats. I like this because I was curious just what is the difference between ePub and ePub 3. And he puts here this concept of website in a box. And this link will be in the slides, which I'll make available somehow. eBook is. It's a website that is inside of a container. And so to understand the format even further, to understand what's inside of it some more, we can open this ePub inside of a tool that makes some sense as to what we're looking at. And that tool is Sigil, or Sigil. It's an ePub editor. I'm going to go past this prompt here. And this editor shows you a little bit like the zip tool, except here, as an editor, you can now edit the files directly. So here's a one of the sections of his ebook, Lather, Rinse, and Repeat. And there's a little preview window here, which you can click on and go to the appropriate XHTML table of contents that you can also double click on. And there's also the ability to examine any markup or any metadata, rather. So the tool provides a way to manipulate the ePub, and there's, of course, ways to search it and ways to edit it. There's even the ability to take text that looks like this and format it to be a little nicer. But I found with this book, if I do that, it edits the formatting. It introduces some extra spacing here. But in the end, when we make our ebook, we're probably not going to write anything inside of Sigil. And we'll get into how we can make our own ebook from scratch, because that's what we're going to do in this little class. So this is our tool that we're going to use, Sigil, and it is an open source tool which you can get off of this website. Again, this will be in the slides. We're going to use it to make an ebook during the next half hour. We got to talk about, when we're making a book, we got to talk about some of the key concepts. But there's only one key concept, and that's HTML. An ebook is a container of XHTML files. It's a website in a box. HTML is something that you're going to have to look at when we consider making our own ebook. Then you have to also write or obtain some content. For our class, we're going to obtain some content. We're going to find some content on the internet and convert it into an ebook. In light of the theme, we're going to make a cookbook. Once we have this content, then we have to format it or convert it. And there's a couple of ways to do that. One is to use the tool Sigil directly, but there's also tools like WordToEPUB, which it's a Windows-based tool, but you can use this tool to convert Microsoft Word or any docx file into an ePub that you can then further format with a tool like Sigil. And finally, we're going to make a little book cover. I'm not a web designer, I'm not a book designer, but I found some resources that I'm going to share which will help you make sense of how to make your own cover. And I'll have some more thoughts on that when we get there. The rest of the slide is just talking about how to convert all of this ePub stuff into Amazon, but it's very straightforward. And if we don't get to it, you see the resources here. There's a tool called Calibre or Calibre. There's also, or Caliber. There's also on your Amazon device an email address, which if you send it in ePub, it will convert that to the Amazon format for use on your Amazon and on your Amazon Kindle. So let's go and make a ebook, but first let's figure out these concepts. HTML, it's not that hard. I think, yeah, it's not that hard. HTML is simply taking raw text, like you see here in the preview window here on the right, and marking up the text using elements that surround the text. So for heading 1, the text, we've surrounded it with these elements, a tag that says H1 and an ending tag that has H1. That's all that HTML is. It's a way to mark up your text so that a reader, in this case, this digital preview, but this way a reader will know how to display it on the screen. HTML has often been, well, let me go through a few more things here. There's a paragraph element. There's also H2, different levels of headings. There's also lists that you can specify using HTML. HTML has often been called the formatter of text. It's the format or the layout or the structure of your text, but the style of your text, I suppose now properly used, the format of your text is governed usually by styles. Styles here, for example, here's a little bit of CSS, so for every H2 element, I want you to center the text. So if you wanted to all of a sudden change it so that the text is centered, is on the left, if you put the word left, then all of these heading 2s will be moved to the left. You can also move it to the right, etc. And there's a lot of other styling things that you could put here. That's CSS in 30 seconds. That was HTML in about 3 minutes. There's not too much more beyond that you need to know, although I think when you go and work on your own project, you're going to spend a lot of time understanding and knowing HTML, and that's what we're going to, that'll be part of your ongoing learning for making an ePub, which is you're going to become a little more adept with HTML. So let's go and write some content. I've always considered myself a failed writer. Well, not a failed writer, but somebody who's always wanted to write. And I do write. I have a blog. I have this little eBook that I've made, and I've been in publishing projects. So you might have the same feelings also, that you have some words and you want to put them out there, and you need to make content. In other words, now this is not a class for how to do that. That would take, well, that could take a long time. I'm just here to invite you to take those words that you have, electronic files or whatever, go and try to format it into an ePub, because that's what this class is showing you. Because we are not going to write a short story or a cookbook together, we're just going to obtain the content. We're just going to grab the content. And I found this great cookbook on this website called Project Gutenberg. And Project Gutenberg is a site that has books for which the copyright has expired. All these books are now available for people to make into ePubs, read for free, etc., etc. There's this cookbook here, which if we read it online, you can see it's a book from 1919, the Italian cookbook, or the Italian book company from New York. It's got some recipes in there. They're written in an older style, and my wife, who works at a indexing cookbook indexing company called Eat Your Books, and she looked at this book and said, these aren't recipes. But I told her, if you go to the bottom, when you get to the desserts and the pastries, they get to look a little bit like recipes. But anyway, that's how recipes were done in the early 1900s. I don't know. This is the content that we're going to now format and make into an ePub. Now that we have the content, I want to introduce you. We talked a little bit about Sigil, and we're going to be in Sigil for a little bit. But I want to mention this book called WordToEPUB, because when you're writing content, maybe your content is already in HTML, but chances are your content is inside of some kind of word processor. And WordToEPUB is a tool that lets you produce, again, from Microsoft Word and actually Apple Pages, but I think when you export into Microsoft Word from Apple Pages, you because I think you can't get this for the Apple. Yeah, these are Windows-based tools. But WordToEPUB lets you convert these tools into an ePub. So for example, if you had your ebook, which is this thing here, look at how I'm doing here. I'm going to do a quick copy and paste. Open this thing up in Microsoft Word. And now the book is entirely inside of this Microsoft Word document. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, that looks through a sieve. But you would copy, like for example of how to use WordToEPUB. You could take this content, put it into Microsoft Word, save the file. I'll put it into my downloads folder. Save it into the Italian Cookbook version 2. I'm a little thrown off because this text all of a sudden looks as if it was formatted, whereas on the website it's formatted with this part here. Although this is the HTML viewing, so I guess this is fine. But now that I have this file in Microsoft Word format, I can then go to it here and put in WordToEPUB. When I installed WordToEPUB, it also created a button on my Microsoft Word ribbon. I'm going to use it this way though. Here I'm going to pick a book. You could choose to have multiple files. You could choose to have multiple files, convert multiple files, but I'm going to only convert this one. I say open, and it's going to immediately convert the book into an ePub. And I'm going to go and say OK. And you could see a little bit of the work that it's doing. I find it interesting that there's clearly some proprietary parts in here, but there's also a lot of open source, namely the use of Pandoc, and there, which I'm familiar with, and one other open source piece here. But anyway, the WordToEPUB finished, and you saw now we've converted this Word document into an ebook. And if I double click on this, this pops up the Italian Cookbook version 2. And this is the second time I've done it. And now you can see as I page through that the book is rendered into an ePub. Now that's how you would do your own book. And as you can see, it's formatted in their own style, but you could then take this book, for example, and open it up in Sigil. When you open it up in Sigil, you'll see that you can, first of all, it puts a little bit of a simple style on there that doesn't use, oh, it does have a CSS style here. It makes its own style sheet. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't notice this from before. But You can then take each section and, like here, for example, if you didn't want this part here, you could edit it out, or here are all the recipes in this one. Even better, you can probably manipulate this table of contents because there's a lot of parts here like this too. What is that pointing to? What is that? What is this for pointing to? So what you have basically is a starting point. You copied your book, or you have a book already in Microsoft Word. You can use this tool, WordToEPUB, to convert it into an ePub format, get all of your words into a website in a box, into the ePub container. And now that it's in here, you can use this tool, Sigil, to format it. And one of the things that I think about when I think about this process is doing this with the book project that I was on. There was definitely a separation between when you're making content, which is the writing, the editorial, the getting the words down. But then the second part of it was that is considered production. That is considered layout, formatting, page editing, and different skill sets. You're a writer. You may not want to format your book, etc., etc. There are all these different specializations and specialties. What I marvel at today, though, is the tools to do that are now available to all of us. Microsoft Word came, everybody was instantly made into a writer with a word processor. But now tools like Sigil exist, and now anybody can format their own ebook. They don't need to be published traditionally anymore. They can self-publish, and that's really exciting. What I'm going to do next is demonstrate another way of making an ebook, which is, I'm going to exit this. I'm going to take this content, this cookbook, and I'm going to put it, or I'm going to save it as HTML. Now, I've already done this with web page HTML only. Or was it single file? Oh no, web page HTML only. And when I do this, Maria Gentile version 4, it will produce a file that I think everybody can predict what it is. It's just the HTML of what we just saw on the browser. But with Sigil, I'll open it now, you can import the HTML directly into it. And I'm going to make a new book here, a new ePub 3 book, and I'm going to bring in an existing file, and I think I put it here, nope, here, and voila. The book is now entirely inside of Sigil, and we can then do the work that we were doing before. So we can go and edit it, we can go and manipulate it. A few things that we're going to do to it. Number one, we're gonna recognize that this part here, the Project Gutenberg ebook, if you're going to use this for yourself, or if you're going to distribute it to your friends, you might want to, you may consider just removing this part all the way up to the start of this book. So you have to be a little careful to get all the right pieces, but I think I did it. Yeah. If I delete this, then it starts immediately with this, and then I can even get rid of this first part here, the Italian cookbook, H2. I'll just get rid of this entirely. So now the book starts with this. One of the considerations with making an ePub is you probably don't want your entire book in a single HTML file. Any website that has a lot of pages will be split up into multiple files, and there's an easy way to split up a file in Sigil. You can pick a section, say here, and cut the file from this point forward. You can split it at the cursor. And now you've introduced a second page with just the premise, the preface, and the previous page, which is this page, is the this part. The preview. Let me go and exit, close these. Actually, I'll close this. I'll open this again. No, I'll open this. Then I'll open this. This page is just this opening part here. So what we've done is we've split the file. And another piece that you might recognize or that you might notice is that everywhere there's an H2, if I search for it here in the editor, and again, this is just knowledge of HTML, but an H2 represents a heading. If I search for this, there's 7 in the file, and if I go to the next one, you can see it kind of breaks up the text in a somewhat logical way. And so anytime that I see an H2, I think what I'd like to do is make a break here. And if I set a break point, what I call setting a page break, I can do that using this split marker. When I set a split marker, I can do that with all of my H2 entries. A keyboard shortcut to do that, which is Control, Shift, and Enter. And once I do all this, ISIS, I can then split the entire file using split at these markers. And when I do that, I get all of a sudden these additional pages, which is a pretty cool way to split up your document. And the other piece that Sigil does that's very, very helpful is it can generate a table of contents based on these header files. If we click here to generate table of contents, what it detects are all of the headers that are in your file, and it lets you pick which ones you want to include. For our purposes, we'll just include only level 2. There's only H2. There's no H1. But we could also sprinkle in some H4 so you could see what that looks like. Spaghetti with butter and cheese. I think I had that last week. Then we had rice cakes and etc., etc. But obviously, if you're going to make your own book, you're going to want to take some good care over how it's formatted and what its table of contents look like. Fried liver, sign me up. Okay, so I'm going to say okay, and when I do, the table of contents gets generated for me here, and there's some subheadings based on the level of the header that's there. An H4 or an H3 will come underneath an H2, and H2 and etc. will come underneath an H1. Now that we've gotten this far with our ePub, we can add metadata to it. Here we can add in this title, the Italian book, version 3, I think it's version 4. I've already forgotten. We can add some metadata like who the creator is. Let's put me here. But we can also add in the metadata of who the author is. And I'm going to put in Maria Gentile. But you see what's happening here. You can put in information like this. There's also a lot more metadata, and that metadata is going to help ebook devices and readers with what's inside this ebook. Okay, we've done a lot of formatting. We've done some converting using WordToEPUB. Now you want to put a nice bow on this book. When I wrote my book, I followed the instructions from Derek Murphy. He does a lot of commentary on publishing and self-publishing. He's got a lot of interesting things to say about the sudden appearance of artificial art that's out there, because now you can just speak some words and art by a computer will generate that image. But when he wrote this in 2000, I think 11, I don't even know, 2000, I don't know, 2010. When I read these instructions in 2017-ish, this was eye-opening, that you could make a book cover entirely in MS Word. The steps for it are not so bad. This is the cover of my book in MS Word. It's a if we look at it closely, the different layouts, you can see that it's it's just a big picture with text on it, and there's text that's here. There's a layout, etc., etc. So let's go and make a cover for our book using a little bit this technique. I'm going to create a new file here, and the very first thing is you need some kind of a terrific image. So I found one that I think would look great on this book. It's a nice picture of some tomatoes about ready to be made into some delicious Italian food. I downloaded this image, and I can bring this image into this document. I'm going to prepare the document, though, by setting all of the margins to be 0. And when I insert the picture, my device, I am going to wrap the text behind the text, wrap the image behind the text. Okay, so I've got this, and I'm going to just crank it up because it's got to fill the cover, right? So we can, yeah, you see what I'm doing here. I'm just finding a good maybe spot to make the cover. Again, I'm not a designer. Here's some alt text. Bowl of tomatoes. Oh, that's good. But and then what we next do is just add a text box. We're going to insert a text box right here. Simple text box, and I'm going to say the Italian cookbook version 4, for example. We're going to take this text and make it very big. Maybe we'll maybe we'll add a little bit of some style to it. Yeah, using the shape fill, maybe something like that. And again, this is very basic. I'm in the cover that I made. I figured out that you can get rid of the backing that like there's no fill, for example, and you could put in the font could be in, I don't know, red. Nope. Let's make it red here, for example. You could do it that way. But once you're happy with your cover, how it looks, what you do is you just take a picture of it. You take a picture of it, get yourself into focus mode, crank it up. And Derek Murphy in his website talks about how you can, how to take a picture of the book for both ePub as well as for production with a print run. It has to be, I think, 300 DPI or 600 DPI. But go and take a look at his YouTube from that website, which again will be in the PowerPoint slides. Once you have the document, you can then bring it into Sigil. Well, you go into the tools, add a cover, and you do need to pick an image that is already inside your container. So what we have to do is first add an existing file. I'm going to go to my cover, which I've already taken a picture of. I'll do this one. It's the one I worked on. It's now inside of my images folder inside of my ePub container, and then I will then add this as a cover. And there we have a cover. When I save this book, this ePub, I'm going to make it, let's see, finished books. Yeah, version 4. Now that this book is an ePub, I can then attempt to read it using an online tool. So that looks like this, like what we saw earlier. I'm going to go to double click on this, and it will open this book, and it'll be a new book, version 4, as you can see here. Yeah, it looks okay. There's some stuff here like this that we probably want to get rid of, but this book already looks like, hey, this is something that I could read. And once you convert it into something that could work on your device, whether it's an Amazon device or even another kind of device, because all the other devices read ePub, this could be something you could have. So that's the presentation. I'm going to quickly take a look at my timing. It says here about 44 minutes, which is how much I wanted to have on here. As I said in my as I said earlier, I'm hoping that people will interact with me and on the tools. Maybe enough people might inquire about my what's behind making an ePub. And I'll go back to here. Again, we can convert this into Amazon very, very easily, so that it's not a big deal that we're using ePub. I do recommend, if people go on this journey, to just practice. You saw how straightforward it was to practice with the tool, or to use the tool rather, and you saw just how rich the tool is. There's a lot of different things in here. The tool itself has an ePub on how to read the ads in my Acqueel reader. Wrong book. There's a lot of documentation on the tool itself, so you can read up on it. The tool also supports a lot of different plugins, so you can bring in different other functionality to here. I've added a text importer and a doc exporter. You basically will have to geek out a little bit on this tool to get the most out of it. I hope everybody has a great rest of the hackathon. People have any further questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. And if people want to talk with me more, I'm here. Just reach out. I wish all of you all the very best as you start, I hope, a publishing journey.